name is Jessica Robinson. I'm the founder of Better Said Than Done. And for those of you who don't know, Better Said Than Done is a storytelling organization. We have monthly storytelling shows, and we got this crazy idea to publish a book of true personal stories, and that's what Roar is. So these are the authors of Roar. I will bring people up one by one. So as I said, my name is Jessica Robinson, and I'm the founder of Better Said Than Done, and we are the publisher of this book. And all proceeds from this book go to the National Network to End Domestic Violence, and I am not an expert on that organization, but we do have someone in the audience who is. So I'd like to introduce Morgan Dewey to tell us a little bit more about the National Network to End Domestic Violence.
Jessica. So I'm Morgan Dewey. I work at the National Network to End Domestic Violence. And ultimately, our goal is to create a political, social, and economic world in which domestic violence no longer exists. And really what brings this work to life is hearing the stories and experiences of women and victims and survivors every single day. So I just want to thank Better Said Than Done and Jessica, Jam and Java, who did an event, everyone here who's serving wonderful food for supporting this amazing book. It's so inspirational. I'll be here if anyone has questions about our work. And just thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. And Morgan has been wonderful to work with. She was the first person I talked to at the National Network to End Domestic Violence, and she's been great about getting the word out about the book, but the whole idea of the book is to help get the word out just about, well, you know what? I actually wrote this really awesome preface. So instead of me trying to explain the idea of the book by speaking from my mind, which is not a great idea, I'm just going to read what I wrote because I actually edited this. I developed the concept for this book late in 2016. I have no idea what was going on late in 2016 that inspired that. That is not in the book, by the way. When I felt an overwhelming sense of, what the heck? I wanted to say something else there, but it seems like I've been having these conversations with women for forever. So many of us have experienced so much crap, and we all just roll our eyes and put up with it. It seems like we're supposed to, that is woman's work, glossing over, being okay with, letting it slide, playing nice. There are stories in this book to which many women will be able to relate. I have been there too. I am with you, sister. There are stories in this book that are meant to inspire strong women being powerful. There are stories in this book of heartbreak and regret that cry out for change. If only I hadn't. If only I could have. If only I did. Finally, there are stories in this book that are meant to illustrate for any man or woman who hasn't been there. These women have. This happened to me. Let me show you what it was like so you can understand. Women are raised with a bias. Be nice. Play well with others. Don't upset anyone. Women are taught to be quiet, be helpful, be sympathetic. When that nice man at work, your boss, makes an inappropriate comment, just let it go. He didn't mean anything by it. When you've gone home with a guy you thought you liked, but now you feel uncomfortable, don't upset him. He likes you. Just smooth things over. If a guy you don't know tells you you have a nice ass, say thank you. If a coworker tells you that you look cute when you do math, just laugh. You know you're prettier when you smile. Be nice. Be quiet. Be a woman. The 21 women in this book all have something to say about that. Whether their story is about taking care of a loved one, being a mother, or leaving an abusive relationship, they are not being quiet anymore. Neither should you. Keep talking to your friends when he does something, but talk to him too, and them, and everyone. We shouldn't have to smile and smooth things over. We shouldn't be quiet. We are women. Let us roar. So the way today is going to work is all of the authors who are here, as I said, there are 21 authors in the book. Not all of them, they're from Canada and California and Arizona and South Carolina, so they didn't all make the trip. So everyone's going to do a very brief reading. They're going to introduce themselves, do a brief reading from their story and answer one of two questions about why it is that they wanted to be in this book. So our first author of the event is Mary Supplee Foxworth. Please welcome Mary Supplee Foxworth.
As Jessica said, I'm Mary Supplee Foxworth. Many moons ago, I wrote about music for On Tap. I've also edited and contributed to 2 other nonfiction books. Every day, I see people in traditional and social media trying to deny that sexism exists, or that sexism or other bigotry are serious problems. So when I heard about Roar, I knew I wanted to submit a story to the book, but I couldn't decide which story I wanted to submit. And that to me is the real power of this anthology, that every woman has not just one, but dozens of stories that she could share about discrimination, harassment, assault, or male chauvinism that she's faced in the workplace, in her home, on the street, or with her friends. Speaking out about these challenges and injustices is an important step toward equality. So I'll do a brief reading from my story, Lucky. I splashed some cold water on my face. Feeling slightly more awake and alert, I turned my gaze from the mirror to the bathroom window. The sun was already up and shining down on the sea of row houses and apartment buildings. It looked like the start of a nice spring day, except I had no idea where I was. Thank you.
So there's 10 of us talking today, so I told everyone to be very brief, partly because there's so many of us, but also because don't you want to know what happened next? So these are all just little teasers. So our next author is Danielle Stone Hirsch.
Hi, I'm Danielle. I have not been widely published, but I do have another nonfiction story, another anthology along with this one. I've had a couple things in literary reviews, and I mostly enjoy just writing with my writing group in Silver Spring, Maryland. I learned about this project and I was really excited about it. I think that the story that I chose to tell was because I feel that our experiences, not just as women, but also as girls when we're younger, can be so informative to the rest of our lives, and that when we are young and see things and experience things over and over, we start to normalize those. And as we grow up, see that and think that this is normal. I see this at home. I see it with my friends. I see this in the world. I see this in the movies. This is what normal is. And I think it's so important that we understand that it is never normal to be mistreated. It is never normal to be abused. It is never normal to let someone treat you in an unkind way. And that's why I felt strongly about including my story in this book. Now her palms are empty, and she lays them on the table face up, and I see on her forearms the marks up and down like polka dots, like dimes, like buttons on a doll dress. Whatever they are like, I know what they are, and she knows that I know, because I know everything. We know everything, and that's why when my eyes play connect the dots on her arms up to the stitches in her forehead, I can't say what she wants me to say, which is that it's okay, that it's all been okay, that it will be okay. And I am 17 years old, and it's been a long time since I thought that everything might just be okay. When she speaks, she picks up another cookie to roll, and she's not angry with me, she's sad, that I don't understand the complexities of love, and I say, love just sounds like a name you give to the reason you let someone throw you at a radiator. And she leaves with the cookie, and for 6 months her parents can't find her, the police can't find her, I can't find her.
Thank you, Danielle. Our next author is Bushra Jabre. Bushra?
My name is Bushra Jabre. I have traveled and worked in many countries, and I chose to talk about my experience in Saudi Arabia because it was, as a woman, it was very traumatic to me. But I've faced a number of similar situations in other countries and in other continents. So my first experience in Saudi Arabia was arriving at the airport in Jeddah. I wore a long skirt. I did not cover my hair, which was thick, black, curly and long. So the immigration officer looks at me and then he looks at my visa and he said, "Where's your mahram?" I wasn't familiar with the term. So I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "Where's your husband?" I said, "I'm not married." He said, "Where's your brother?" I said, "I don't have any brothers." He said, "Where's your uncle?" I said, "My uncle? Why would he travel with me?"
I love hearing their perspective from another country. Slightly different from America. Please welcome our next author, Kim O'Connell.
Hi, I'm Kim O'Connell. I'm a journalist and an essay writer in Arlington, Virginia. And I wanted to get involved in this book because the story that I ended up contributing reminded me of a classic novel of the Vietnam War, actually, that's called The Things They Carried by Tim O'Brien. And it's a story about all the mental baggage that soldiers bring to a war and take away from it. And when I was thinking about my story, I realized that many women have so many experiences, not unlike like a war or like a battlefield experience, that we carry with us and that might come back to haunt us, later in life. So my story is about something I carried into a hike into Shenandoah National Park. And the story is called Mary's Rock. I didn't want to be afraid in Shenandoah, even though I was, of strange men, of bears, of fear itself. I decided that if I was going to be afraid, I might as well carry the fear with me. Maybe, I thought, I would gain something by gathering the things that scared me closer rather than pushing them away. Maybe I would find the power I had ceded long ago. I took a deep breath and started walking.
Our next author is named Elizabeth Futrell, and she is here all the way from Chicago.
Hi everybody, I'm Elizabeth Futrell. As Jessica mentioned, I'm from Chicago, but I work for Johns Hopkins University, so I'm in Baltimore quite a bit. Professionally, I'm the co-founder of a global storytelling initiative in support of contraceptive access, and I write on Medium. And then personally, I'm involved in a Chicago-based storytelling group called I Ate the Spider. And I'm going to talk for a minute about a moment I had the other day where it was like a thank God I'm involved in this book moment. And this isn't what I was planning to say when I got up here, but like I just mentioned, I travel a lot internationally and then back and forth between Chicago and Baltimore, and so that means I go out a lot alone, which usually is okay, and then sometimes it's not. So the other night I got to Baltimore just in time for dinner. I walked around the corner from my hotel to this food hall, which is usually a pretty decent place to go alone if you have to, because it's pretty social. I sit down at the oyster bar and I'm having a drink and having some oysters, and this guy sits down next to me. First it's pretty harmless, we're just chit-chatting, and it's kind of nice to have some company, and then he looks at me and says, "I wish I could buy you a sexy dress." And then I try to kind of, like roll my eyes, we keep chit-chatting because he won't leave, and then a couple minutes later he looks at me and says, "Can I tell you something?" And I'm being totally honest right now. "You mean more to me than my wife at this moment." And I just was like, but I couldn't get rid of it, and then at that point I just tried to leave. He paid for my dinner without me realizing it or wanting it, and then he insisted on walking me back to my hotel, which thank God was just a block away, and it was fine. Luckily, when I went inside the hotel, he left, but do you think I'm gonna go back to that food hall anytime soon? Do you think I even wanted to go downstairs to the hotel lobby later that night? No. So I had that moment where I was just like, thank God I'm involved in this book. And my story has nothing to do with that topic. It's actually about my long and winding path to a career in family planning and reproductive health. And I don't think I'll spoil the end of my story if I read you the last paragraph. Many of the people I've interviewed tell harrowing stories of the difference between life and death that access to reproductive health services like contraception can make, especially in low-resource settings. Though I've lived and worked in several countries, I haven't seen firsthand the dire circumstances that many of my colleagues have faced regularly. Women dying in childbirth under the strain of being too young to give birth or having given birth too many times. Frightened girls bleeding to death after unsafe abortions. Undernourished babies and children. But sitting down with diverse people from around the world, from midwives to high-level donors to young advocates, makes me realize that each of us has a compelling story, a path that led us to this work. For some of us, it's only in hindsight that we're able to see we were on the path at all.
Our next author is Sandra Hull.
Hi, I'm Sandra Hull. By day, I design e-learning, so I tell corporate stories. And by night, I tell stories on the stage about things from A to Zamboni. And the reason I wanted to be part of this project is for two reasons, for two audiences. The first, and probably more importantly to me, is my younger self, to give her a voice, to let her know it wasn't her fault, she wasn't overreacting, she wasn't misinterpreting, she didn't deserve it. And it's also to show anyone else who's been there, you're not alone, and to show that when you're raised in a household, in an affluent community with caring parents, no physical violence, you can still get pretty messed up. Everyone in our household was fair game for abuse, but each parent was slightly less hard on their own personal favorite, their own golden child. My mother doted on younger brother, who closely resembled her side of the family. My father favored older brother, who was pretty much his mini-me. The favoritism was even hardwired into my brother's names. Older brother's middle name is dad's first name. Younger brother's middle name is the masculine form of mom's first name. As the middle child and the only girl, I wasn't named after anyone. I was no one's favorite and everyone's scapegoat. In the family's ongoing game of emotional Russian roulette, I nearly always drew the loaded chamber.
Our next author is Laura Pimentel.
Hi everyone, yes, I'm Laura Pimentel. This is actually my first piece that I've had published, so it's very exciting. And the reason why I wanted to be part of this, my story has to do with mental health, mental illness, and I think just in general we need to talk a lot more about mental illness, but specifically for those who are caring for loved ones who are mentally ill, and in my specific situation with my husband and what the impacts on a marriage from somebody who was suffering from mental illness. So it really was just a great platform to be able to continue. I think we are talking more about it, but there's still a whole lot more to be said. I pulled up to where he said he was. I didn't see anyone. Then he stood up and came out of the bushes where he had been hiding, and my heart broke. He was disheveled and unshaven. His eyes were dilated, and he looked around nervously. He quickly got into the car. I put my hand on his arm and told him that he was okay. I couldn't begin to understand what he was going through, but I also knew that I couldn't continue to go through it with him, and I was horrified by what kind of person that made me.
Our next author is Urmila Khanna.
As Jessica has said, I'm Urmila Khanna. I'm the author of the memoir Boundaries of the Wind, which was published in 2015. I have also published short stories and essays in other magazines and anthology collections. My latest submission will appear in the anthology titled The Best of Virginia Writers Club, to be released in November in celebration of the 100th anniversary. I chose to enter my story in Roar because the subject of domestic violence is close to my heart. Being a pediatrician, I have spent a good part of my life with children and witnessed innumerable aspects of injustice that these children have had to face for no fault of their own. I think it is time that we all come together to share our stories and speak out on behalf of our innocent children. The short piece that I'm going to read. Dr. Oliver looked at my resume and then at me. His defiant stare and a long pause made me believe that he was waiting for me to say something. "Yes, sir," I uttered in a choking voice. Our meeting ended, and with it, my hopes. I suppressed my tears and walked out of his office. With my head spinning, I recounted my encounter with Dr. Oliver. I touched the skin on the back of my hand. Maybe he has a point. "You are brown. What young mother would allow you to touch the belly of her precious newborn?" he had said in our interview. White supremacy, entrenched into my core, surfaced in my mind. I'm not prone to anger, but that day I felt intimidated. I wanted to give up and go back to India, but then again, that was not an option. I was an American citizen.
And we have one more author left to do a reading, and then we'll do another group photo, group bow, call all the authors back up on stage. And then if you haven't bought a book and you do want one, they're available for sale over by the door. But last but not least, please welcome Mary Lucas.
I'm Mary Nickel Lucas. I was a journalism major who went into marketing. In part, I'll confess, it paid better. And I've done all kinds of writing in marketing, and it's fun. But I write in my own time simply because it enriches my life. And I almost never submit things for publication. I do it for my own personal benefit and the joy it brings me interacting with other writers. But this opportunity came along at the perfect time, because a presidential candidate was heard on a tape saying that because he was famous, he could grab women, like they liked it because he was famous. And in fact, he could even grab their pussy, and it was okay. Well, a little over 40 years ago, I had my own experience with something like that, and it really wasn't okay. So I'll read you just a short part of it. As the train hit full speed, the car began to rock slightly, and the beast's hand became more aggressive, kneading and bullying my pussy. Beads of sweat appeared along his prematurely receding hairline. I couldn't decide if it was caused by so many people being jammed together or in response to his hand in my crotch. His eyes remained locked on mine as his fingers continued to grope. His gaze was defiant and downright mocking.
Anyone would be willing to give you their autograph. These people are, well, I'm already famous, but the rest of these people are going to be famous very soon, so I suggest you get their autograph. I'm just gonna say thank you all for coming. Thank you all for being here and supporting our book and for supporting the National Network to End Domestic Violence. And then authors, if you would hang out for a second and we'll take a photo without the mic. Thank you, everyone. Thank you. I just have to say, that's my husband who's taking the photos, and he also designed the cover.